Welcome. I'm Corey Kaler, and I run a company called Corey Kaler Media. What I do is I help service businesses find more customers online. And right now, I'm kind of focusing on the Minnesota area, but I've been doing it for about 10 years now. I've been helping people in the area, but also around the country, and even had a couple clients in Australia once upon a time. So today we are going to talk about finding marketing opportunity. This was kind of born out of a conversation I had a couple of months ago in this local networking group that I'm in called AIM. And I just asked people, we do this thing called a brainstorm. So AIM, brain. so, and I just asked everybody, like what some of their biggest questions were, with marketing their business. And a lot of them said they just didn't know where to start. They didn't know which platforms they need to be on and so on. So I started thinking about it. And the more I thought about it, I realized that a lot of businesses are missing out on a lot of opportunities just because they don't know where to go. They don't know, where to start and all that stuff. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Why don't we just get right into it? We're talking about finding more opportunity in your business, where you should be online, what you need to know, that kind of thing. So if you're not using digital marketing smartly, you are missing out because there are so many things that you could be doing for free and paid. And we're going to talk about a couple of those as we kind of go through this. First of all, you're losing potential clients to other businesses, right? Like if you're not showing up on search, for instance, but all your competitors are, well, who's going to get the customers? Not you. Same thing on, social, depending on where your audience is, if they're seeing your competitors, well, they're not seeing you. So you could be losing out on all kinds of great clients and customers. So the other thing that you might be missing out is wasting time and money on things that don't bring in customers. I make this same mistake. I'll focus on doing like busy work because I don't really have any goals. I don't really know who my customers are. And maybe I'm just focused on the wrong things, right? You think that you're doing something. Like for instance, there's people that will go on Twitter, right? That was one mistake I made about 10 years ago when I first started doing this. I'm doing all this marketing on Twitter, but I'm not going to reach local people on Twitter because there just isn't a lot of people in our area on a site like Twitter, right? So you kind of want to put a little thought into this so that you know where you should spend your time and where you should spend your money. A lot of times people will, they'll run ads maybe in a newspaper. Well, their clients might not even be on, reading that newspaper. So you're just wasting your money. So we're going to talk about a lot of the stuff that you kind of should look at before you even, before you get started. And just, again, these are opportunities to make your marketing better and bring in more customers. So next thing that's kind of a mistake is it's just, it's harder to get people to know, like, and trust you. I talked about this on Wednesday a little bit. One of the reasons I started doing this video stuff is because there was a few times over the last couple of months where I heard people, they said they were looking for people to help them with their marketing, their website, whatever. And then they told me, they're like, "Hey, I didn't even know that you did that." Well, that's my fault. I wasn't getting, I wasn't putting the word out there. So if you don't have a presence on digital, whether it's on Facebook or Google or wherever, you know, people just aren't going to know who you are. And if they don't know who you are, they're not going to get to like you, and they're not going to trust you. And it's just going to be that much harder to find clients. So all that to say, there are some things that we can do. Oh, and I forgot about this one too. Inconsistency in getting new clients, so it's not steady, right? Like you kind of want to build up like some sort of a list. You don't want to have to go and, hunt down customers and clients every time, you need some. Sometimes you've got too much business. I've had that. I talked about that in the last lunch and learn as well, where, I just kind of took it for granted. I was getting a bunch of referrals over time, but eventually they may dry out, right? So what you want is you want to have a steady flow of customers coming in, because otherwise, you don't know it. There could be some lean days ahead, and why do you want to be scrambling at the last second when you could have had some sort of a campaign in place all along that's just bringing you a constant flow of customers? So that's another thing that you'd be missing out on if you aren't doing anything with digital marketing. So again, these are all great opportunities for you to do some stuff. So now I'm going to just kind of go through some of the steps to finding these opportunities. And the first place we start is good old fashioned market research, right? So you're going to want to study your market, spy on your competitors, kind of just take a look and see what they're doing, because you might get some clues as to like, okay, what's working for them. But you also are going to notice opportunities where, like, you know what, they're not talking about X, Y, or Z, but I do that, so now you can start to think about ways you can differentiate yourself. Or if you're looking at a competitor and you see that they are running a bunch of, maybe they're running a bunch of stuff on Facebook, like Facebook ads, and you notice that nobody's talking or nobody's interacting with those ads, it could be a sign that your customers just aren't on Facebook. It could be also a sign that the competitor doesn't know what to do, or they don't know how to run stuff on Facebook. But it just gives you an idea of what's out there, and then you can plan accordingly. And it's huge. And a lot of business owners don't do this. And when I start with clients, a lot of times this is the case. Like, hey, tell me about what your competitors are doing, and a lot of times they just don't know. They never took the time. Nobody told them. So this is kind of a big one. One of the ways I do that is, I'll start up like some spreadsheets, and I don't. It's a little harder to see these than I thought it was going to be, but basically, you'll just go down. You'll figure out all your competitors. Just kind of look around, and you just kind of jot all their names down. What their website is, and then you kind of go and you look at all their socials, right? You'll go and, are they on Facebook? Are they on Instagram? Are they on YouTube? And you just kind of note this stuff down. You can kind of note like how many followers they have, but then also you can kind of look around and see if they have ads. And there's tools to do that. And this might be way more in depth for some businesses. You might not have to go in this far into depth, but I'm just showing you, how you could just start to kind of get an idea of what's going on. And this is called a market map, is one of the terms that we use in marketing to describe this. And then some of the other things you'll notice too, are they running ads? What are some of their top, where are they sending people to from a social site or from Google? Like, what are the landing pages? What are they saying on that? And then just kind of take note of like their key messages. Because again, these are all clues as to, things that maybe you could be doing, or ways that you could differentiate yourself from your competition, and, just kind of get in front of the right audience. So yeah, usually you just fire up a spreadsheet and, just start writing this stuff down. I know it's kind of fun for for geeky guys like me, but it's definitely something that really any business owner can do. And it's a lot easier these days with AI, and that's some stuff we can talk about in the future. So the next thing is, you want to create the perfect customer. So in other words, there's another word we say, like in marketing, we call this, building a customer avatar. And what it is you're just defining who your ideal customer is, right? And it makes it easier to market to them, right? So like, instead of having, like just a blob of customers in your mind, you just have one. Sometimes you're going to have two or three of these, but the key is to just build these out. And you're gonna say, like for me, I have one. And did I put this in here? Let me see this slide. Oh, I didn't add it. Oops, that was my bad. So basically what I would do is I would even give them a name, right? I call it Jordan Taylor is the name of mine. It's going to be, small service business owners in Minnesota, ages, on average, 35 to 60. They make this much a year. And then it just goes through this whole exhaustive list of like exactly what these people do, where they might hang out, some of their concerns. And then now you have something that you can reference every single time that you do your marketing. So when you're building out a campaign, or you're considering, something on Facebook, you understand how to talk to them, because you have one person. And a lot of businesses have multiple customer avatars. I'm just trying to think, more for me, I'm focusing on small service businesses in Minnesota right now. However, I mean, I can work with other, B2B businesses. I can work, maybe I want to focus just on people that are on YouTube, right? So you can kind of create different avatars, and you generally don't want to have too many of them, but a lot of times, businesses will have, two or three sometimes. So yeah, and if you have any more questions about that, we'll have a Q&A at the end of this and we can kind of discuss this. And I'm kind of disappointed that I didn't put in this presentation. I thought I had a picture of my avatar so I could give you a little bit better of an idea. So create the perfect customer. Then the next step that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create something that's called an empathy map. And this is, what do your customers see, think, feel, and do? And this is just, again, another way of like really kind of getting inside of the mind of your customer. And it just helps you understand what you can talk about on social, how you should talk to them on your website, and so on. And here's an example. I just whipped this one up this morning just using AI. So this is way simpler than it was, even 2 years ago. So it's you can just enter in a prompt. I used Google Gemini in this case, and I just would enter in a prompt, and then you can see here that it just kind of gives you an idea of what small business owners are thinking, when it comes to digital marketing, right? Think, what do they think and feel? Well, they're worried about keeping up with the latest digital trends. They might be overwhelmed by the amount of information. What do they say or do, right? Things like, I don't have time for this. I'm not sure where to even start. So, again, I'm addressing an issue, in this very presentation today, that people are actually wondering this. I know this stuff because, I did my homework in the beginning and I built out an empathy map. And you can see here just all kinds of stuff. So these are, like I said, they're super easy to do these days. You just can enter a prompt, and if you want that prompt, let me know. I can send it over, and that can help you kind of get an idea of who your customer is and what they're kind of thinking. So yes, empathy maps are really good. So that right there, this whole section about market research is where a lot of business owners kind of miss the most opportunities just by looking at, really studying your customers and really studying your your market and your competitors. You're gonna find opportunities. There's a reason you got into business. Sometimes maybe it was because you noticed something with that a competitor wasn't doing and you're like, I can do that better. Well, even if you think you know everything, it's still a good exercise to kind of go through and just do these simple things, because it's just gonna, just gonna shine a spotlight on a lot of opportunities that you didn't necessarily know that were there. So the next thing we can do, that are going to help with, opportunities or create more opportunities for us, is creating the right assets. And assets, kind of a tricky word. I see Mark's on here. Hi, Mark. He had mentioned this when I went through the opportunity report that I'm going to talk about later in the presentation. He didn't really understand what assets are. So I'm going to try to explain them to you. Basically, what they are is, some of the things that you have, like, say, for instance, your website is an asset, your email list, your customer list is an asset. Um, Places that you're listed online, like a lot of service businesses are going to use, you know, business listings like Google My Business or Bing Places, places like that. Those are assets for your business. Your social profiles on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, those are all assets that you're going to want to have. And then finally, analytics, which is using a tool like Google Analytics, where it tracks all your traffic and it can kind of tell like all the visitors, where all the visitors on your website are coming to, kind of tell you how long that they're staying around. That data is an asset for your business. And this, again, these assets are going to provide you with opportunity, or provide you, provide you with opportunities to identify opportunities, because they're just important. So you're going to want to make sure that you have, you don't, not every business needs every single one of these things, but you definitely want to consider each one of them, like maybe have at least one social profile, again based on like where you think your customers are. Maybe you just know that your customers are on Facebook and they look for you on Google. You might only need to have those two types of assets. Or maybe people don't search for your stuff. I would doubt that at some point they might end up doing it, but like maybe you just want to have an Instagram account and that's all you need. So it's just stuff that you need to think about. Email list could be like debatable for some people. Like if you're a service business and you don't have a lot of, I don't know, it's hard for me to think of reasons why you wouldn't have an email list, because email lists are great because they're customers that you kind of, I don't want to say own, but like when you're on a social network like Facebook or whatever, they make the rules. And like if they just shut your page off someday, you don't have those customers. However, if you have an email list, when you're like a CRM or something like that, you always have a list of customers that, like, if you need business or if you want to help with something, or you want to get the word out about something or whatever, stay in communication with your customers. An email list is like a super important thing, probably one of the most valuable things that you can have in your business. And sometimes you can even turn it into a source of revenue. And that's a whole other topic that we can talk about some other time. But again, and really a lot of these, some of these social profiles could even be turned into a source of revenue for you. Again, different topic for another day. Let me know in the comments or the show notes or whatever if you think that's a topic I should cover. But yeah, there's so much that you could do with these assets. So there's something that you're definitely going to want to look into. So the next thing you're going to want to have is a plan. So you need a strategy, and it's not something that you probably have to do every single day. Every business is a little different, like as far as, how much of a plan and how much you're going to do, but you should at least put some thought into it and just have something in place just so that you kind of are on top of it and you're not missing out on opportunities, because having a strategy is definitely an opportunity. And a few things here, this little small checklist here, planning checklist, before you even start, you're going to want to kind of set some guidelines, right? Like, how do we look? How do we talk? When I post something on Facebook, what is it that I say? And a lot of this stuff again is going to come out of the market research that you did. You're going to notice things. Are you going to be more formal? Are you going to be more businessy? Like, I mean, those are things that you can kind of think about. What kind of content that you want to post? Is it humorous? Is it serious? You're going to just want to start thinking about that kind of stuff, and then kind of define your content strategy. Are you a video person? Maybe you want to do some more videos. So, well, then you should lay out a plan of like, here's a list of different videos that I could cover. Like maybe I want to do a bunch of frequently asked questions and just answer those and just post those online or wherever I'm going to be working, going back to the social media stuff. And then again, a content calendar. A lot of times, and I'm kind of working through this right now with this experiment with the YouTube live and the shorts and all that stuff that I'm doing right now. I kind of have a general content calendar, but in the past I didn't really have anything. But having a calendar makes it like super easy to, you don't have to think about it every time. You're not reinventing the wheel every single time you got to post something, right? I just have a list of like shorts that I can do. All these lunch and learns. Like I had this planned out like over a month ago. I had this particular topic planned out. So I just, sat down for a couple hours one day, laid out like, 10 videos worth of stuff, and what dates I was going to do it. And it just makes things a lot easier. And the more you do it, as I'm learning, it gets easier, even easier than that. So you just kind of want to have kind of a plan in place. And again, that's an opportunity because like once you get good at all of this stuff, it just makes it way easier. It takes less time for you, but it also just multiplies, you know, all the things that you're able to do. You're going to get a lot more eyeballs for less time, right? Because you've already put in the work, and that's it. So, and then also measurement, that kind of speaks to, just kind of figuring out, like what is success to you? Like if I'm going to set up a content calendar, do I want to, how many phone calls do I want to get? Like I want to get, 5 phone calls. I'm going to post every day in the morning for 2 weeks, in front of my audience on Facebook or whatever. And like, what do you want to do? Do you want to generate, a bunch of comments? Do you want to generate some phone calls on Google by, doing some SEO or doing some Google ads? Figure out what good criteria is for you to kind of measure your success. That way it's like, if once you've been doing it for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you're like, oh, that's actually working, so keep doing that. It just kind of helps you kind of work your way through that so that you know what's working and what's not. So you definitely want to think about that, all part of the plan. So moving on to the next thing. So one of the last opportunities, and I don't know, a lot of people, we talked about this a little bit, I think in the last on Wednesday, but run a campaign. These days you can get by with some ad campaigns without spending a ton of money, right? If you've done all the steps up into this point, like we did some market research, we know who our avatar is, we went through and we created some assets. You should start getting a picture of like where your audience is hanging out, what kind of stuff they like to look at, what kind of stuff they like to read, what kind of information they like to learn about. And now it's time to just kind of start thinking about like, what, how can we, start putting billboards up all over, you know, on the side of the roads that they're traveling on, right? This is like an analogy I use all the time because really that's what digital ads are, whether it's a search ad or whether it's a Facebook ad, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. They're basically just little billboards that are, getting in front of people as they're kind of cruising through the digital highway, for lack of a better term. So here, why campaigns? These are just some really good idea, or these are some of the really good reasons that, you should consider running campaigns for your business. First of all, you have a 24/7 salesperson working for you. If you have a really good ad, you might not need a lot of ads, depending on what your goals are. You just have this ad working for you day and night, and the algorithms and the ad networks are actually working for you, bringing customers to you. So that is like a big reason, right? I mean, you can't really do that unless you actually go get a salesperson or unless you actually do the sales yourself, right? So it's just another way to kind of outsource your sales in a way, right? You're using the paid ads, the digital marketing to bring people back to your business. You can also target your perfect customer, going back to the avatar that we're talking about. Now that you have all this information about them, you can create ads that are just targeting those specific people. So, just to kind of compare it with like radio advertising, because I used to always, 10, 15 years ago when I first started doing this, I would always try to compare, what I do with Google ads and Facebook ads to what a radio station is doing. When a radio station does an ad for you, it's just blasted to everybody. It's kind of like a shotgun approach, right? We're just gonna spray and pray, right? I mean, obviously some of your business might actually benefit from this, maybe a restaurant, that kind of thing. But you're just kind of hoping that the right people hear, out of thousands of people. Whereas on digital, there's so many things that you can do to kind of dial in, like you can dial things in, like, right, you can go, for instance, if you only have you only want people that are 30 to 40 years old, moms that just had, a child, well, you can put your ad in front of them and then just make sure that nobody else is seeing those by picking the right audience. That way you're not spending all this extra money on people that don't really need to see your ad. And it just makes it more likely that that person is going to, become a customer because you're in front of the right person. So that's like a huge one as far as paid ads goes. Or on Google, it's like if you know the words that your customer is typing into the search engine, well, you can just put your ad in front of it and, take your shot at bringing that customer into, whatever it is, getting them to call you or getting them to, fill out a form or whatever it is your goal is. Measurable results is another reason why you would want to do a paid ads campaign. So one thing that's it's getting a little trickier these days, but one thing you can do is you can see what works and what doesn't, because it's all being tracked with, like I mentioned before, that we had some measurement, we had some Google, your one of your assets was your Google Analytics, where you're measuring your traffic. Well, now you can tell, like, hey, I spent $100, and of that $100, I had, five new customers, right? So now you can start doing the math on that, and you can start to tell if it's worth your time and your money, or maybe you need to make your campaign better, or maybe it's working just great. I'm putting $1 in the machine and I'm getting $5 out, right? I mean, that's what you're looking for. A little trickier sometimes when you're trying to do like older style marketing, like newspapers, or even like going back and using the radio analogy. You can kind of tell that things are working, and whether you want to spend more money, spend less, or maybe find another strategy. So measurable results is a big one. Find out what works faster. That's that's a big one too, right? Like with Google ads, it's not quite as easy as it used to be, but in the old days you could run like five or six different types of ads, or just maybe even two separate ideas, right? Like maybe you have one idea for a campaign, and then you have another one, right? Like which message resonates most with my customer? Instead of like guessing which one's going to work, you can just find out which one works. There's all kinds of ways to kind of figure out what works these days. Like for instance, with video, for me, as I'm doing these live videos, I take them and then I splice them out, and then I've been making shorts out of them, and I'm just going to drip those shorts out there, starting on YouTube, maybe onto social at some point when I get a little more time. But what will happen is you'll start to see things like, oh, wow, that video really did well, or a lot of people commented on that video. It's like, okay, maybe I want to spend some money on that particular video because it's working really well. It's really resonating. You can do the same thing with search ads. If somebody's looking for a particular service. Like for instance, I'll just use digital marketing because that's what I'm doing. But if somebody's looking for a digital marketing agency, I can come up with a couple different types of ads, right? Like maybe I want to focus on the pain point where like don't know where to start, right? So I can craft my ad that talks about, I can help you where to start, or understand where to start. Or maybe they just don't have time to do it. So now I could create an ad that's like talks about like how I can save them time or I can help them, right? So now I got these two competing ideas or benefits that I can give to the customer, and over time you'll start to see which one works better, right? So then you could put more effort into the one that's working, and then kind of get rid of them. So you're just kind of optimizing your campaign, and that also kind of helps you optimize your ad spend over time. And then finally, probably the most important one is like you're just going to be able to get more eyeballs with doing ads, just because it's getting harder and harder to organically rank for keywords on Google. It's getting harder and harder to get any kind of reach on Facebook or LinkedIn or TikTok to some extent. It's just because there's just so much competition for your attention. By running some smaller campaigns, or just putting out more content and more information about your business, you're just going to increase the odds that you're going to have a lot more eyeballs on your stuff. So those are some of the bigger reasons. There's probably a few that I probably missed, but those are some of the reasons. And just to give you a quick idea here, it's just some of the campaign types. I kind of talked about them a little bit, but some of these are what I'm talking about. They don't all have to be paid. Like I said, if you're really good at organic, the thing with organic is it just takes a little more time, and it's gonna, it's not as fast, but you can certainly do that by creating blogs, um, certain videos, and all that kind of stuff. And again, these are all topics I'll talk about as we kind of go through, some of these lunch and learns. But we have content boost ads. You'll see those. Like when the boost button when you're on Facebook. I'm sure you've seen those. Those are some ways to do it. Search ads, I kind of talked about that. On Google, you probably know what those are. When you search, you always see at the top, there's ads. There's also traditional advertising, even though I used to sell against traditional advertising. I think that there are absolutely times when a business should use those, and you can use all of these kind of in concert, right? But yeah, I mean, print ads, it just depends on what your business is, you know? It's not a one size fits all usually. Every business is just a little bit different, but yeah, print ads can work, radio ads can work, TV commercials, all that stuff can work. Yeah, and a lot of times you can actually use like search ads and content boost ads. You can use them, you know, in conjunction with some of these other things to kind of really ramp up your, you know, your return on investment. So there you go. That's pretty much it. I kind of went through those pretty quick, but if you wanted to kind of find out how your business is doing as far as, you know, what opportunities you might be missing out on, how to take advantage of those opportunities, hop over to my website right here. You can see CoreyKalerMedia.com/report, and you can go through and you'll just answer a couple of questions. It takes like 3 minutes. And basically it's just going to spit out a report, and it's just going to give you like a nice little colorful graph here that's going to say, hey, this is where you're weak, and here's where you have some opportunities to kind of better your digital marketing. So yeah, go grab that, CoreyKMedia.com/report, and it's gonna help you out.